first place, but really look to step up into global leadership roles in this industry, which is growing very quickly. We are on track to needing $3 trillion in climate tech investment that is looking for a place globally, and 25% thereabouts, even of last year's startup funding, actually went to climate tech. So if you need a reason to take this seriously, let me just say it's a $1 trillion industry, and we're just getting started. But let me give you a bit of more background here. So my admission here is that I'm not actually like a climate person, or at least I didn't used to be. My background is in strategy consulting and international development with a company called Dalberg. And essentially my road into this space started with a relatively simple question posed in a moonshot idea competition. And that question is, how do you create 30 million quality jobs for young Africans? And actually think about that. Like, how would you create 30 million jobs for young Africans? You know, it's not a trivial question, and we can see that we need it. We have a large growing population. We've got a very good demographic dividend. This is Africa's time to shine. But what industry can actually give us those jobs? For reference, 30 million jobs, that's the global garments industry. So that question is very much needed for us to ask. And my answer at the time, and to some extent still, is that climate science tells us that by 2050, we need to remove 5 to 10 billion tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. And just to give you a reference point here, that is about twice as much in weight terms as the petroleum industry moves around today. It's huge. It's huge. And so, yeah, that I thought could be a big industry. And that led me down a road and the rabbit hole, you might say, of really reading into this topic a lot more deeply, thinking about, like, what do we actually need to do to make that happen, to build that huge industry? Because we've heard that there is great ways of doing that, planting trees, for example, but they are not sufficient by no means. And we really just need technology to help us get the way there. And that's like the climate science, and that is very clear, even in the most ambitious decarbonization scenarios. And so after working on that topic for sort of 2 more years, I moved my life to Kenya with the ambition of starting a company here to do just that. And I had narrowed down over time on direct air carbon capture as the only thing that can really get us to the scale that we need to do this. And Kenya is the world's best place to do that. Let me be clear. Highly durable technological carbon removal will be Kenya's gift from the rift, you might say, to the world. This is East Africa's ticket to high-income country status. This is not trivial. We are not talking about, you know, a cottage industry. This is going to be $1 trillion that will be spent. And the question is where, and the fundamentals are very much in East Africa's favor. And let me give you some details about why. And you know that I've since realized that that carbon removal industry, that is also just the tip of the iceberg. That $1 trillion is not yet ambitious enough. But the point here is that we at Octavia think about this that way. You know, when you really want to build technology at scale, we know from past experience, broadly, how to make new technology cheap. And we've seen that happen in solar. We've seen it happen in e-mobility, in batteries, and so on. And the crucial ingredient that you need are global supply chains. And that is something that we've seen borne out in solar and so on. And the question is, where are these supply chains going to be located? Are we still going to just do stuff in China and maybe assemble it here, bring it here, and so on? I mean, for one thing, China's average age today is 40. It does not have the demographic dividend that it had some 25 years ago, thereabouts. And like much of East Asia, it is aging very rapidly. And so there is like an opening here. And there's like also just like, there's a demographic reason, and obviously a political reason here as well. And so now we have to ask ourselves, like, yeah, sort of which region can capitalize on this? And the point here is that Kenya has a lot going for it. And you know, the talent is one. Like, we've got the talent right now, we've got the demographic dividend, we've got brilliant engineers, and I'll let my engineer Duncan convince you of that just later, to lead this transition here in Kenya. And we have, not just that, we also have vast amounts of renewable energy on the grid today. And just to be clear, this isn't just, you know, some pie-in-the-sky number that we're throwing out here. Kenya is actually the 6th largest geothermal producer in the world today. It's ahead of Iceland and other places that you might know for this. And as opposed to places like Iceland, Kenya has actually quadrupled its capacity over the past decade, whereas Iceland and, say, the US have been quite stagnant. And we are likely to quadruple that again over the next decade. And the question is, if you want to build stuff that matters, if you want to produce actual molecules that basically don't kill the atmosphere, you need 24/7 reliable green energy to do just that. Kenya has these ingredients, and much of the East African rift does too, even if Kenya is the only place today that has that existing industry. And again, just to tell you what that means for us, again, broadly speaking, what we do, direct air carbon capture, we have machines that filter CO2 from the atmosphere, and broadly speaking, you have a chemical reaction here that needs essentially heat to be broken up again and release CO2 that we can suck out of a machine, pump underground, and store very durably. And I have no question that Duncan will tell us a bit more about that. But we need heat. We need heat. And just to be very clear, again, the task that we have with defossilizing the global economy is enormous. We are talking of molecules that we all wear probably on our bodies right now. There's synthetic fibers in here that are petroleum derivatives. There is, if you've taken a pill of medicine this morning, maybe there's some petroleum derivatives in there too. The phone cover on this thing here, that's a petroleum derivative too. We need to actually replace all these molecules with something that does not kill our oceans and our atmosphere. Now, how do we do that? Essentially, the key ingredient is energy. It all comes down to energy. And where do you have really abundant energy? It is in geothermal places. It might not even just be the electricity that you need. And just to give you an example from our company, 90% of the energy we need is heat. It is low-grade heat of a kind that you can actually get quite cheaply, almost for free, from geothermal sources. And so really, as we think about that energy transition, and it's that energy transition not just in the sense that we have to find different fuels to power our cars and whatever, or we have to electrify that. It really is a question of where is the global economy going to get the energy from to produce the molecules it needs to run? And ideally we're also enabling everyone a better lifestyle than today. And the answer there is quite clear. We have energy, especially in East Africa, to make that happen and to lead that transition globally and to defossilize, and note, I'm not saying decarbonize because carbon is just an integral part to our economy. Again, I'm a carbon-based life form, as are you, and much of the rest, probably the chairs you're sitting on, are partly made of carbon. We can't decarbonize everything, so we have to think about how do we defossilize? How do we actually create renewable carbon and create that into molecules that can actually power whatever we want to do, really whatever we want to do. And the answer there is, you start off with air-captured carbon. East Africa, as I told you, is the best place to get that carbon. Now, and that is our mission as a company. That is the sort of reversing climate change part, where we take enormous amounts of carbon and we put it underground. Exciting, yes. But the second part of a mission statement is ending the fossil fuel age. So the mission then becomes, we take that carbon, we snap a hydrogen atom to it, and then we build hydrocarbons that can actually be an alternative bottom to the global economy, that can buttress everything that we do, but not kill our planet in the same line. And again, that is our vision for a broader carbon economy, a new carbon economy that we're building globally, and that is a big task to start with. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is the task of our century, and again, we need young, brave people to do that. And again, where do we have those? We have those aplenty in Africa and in East Africa as well. And again, while not being in the best position to talk about this, I have the pleasure every day to go to work with amazing engineers who are inspired to just make that happen and make it happen for their country, make it happen for themselves, and to really make it happen for the world. And again, that global ambition is something that we have to be serious about. And at the end of the day, again, the story I'm telling here is about carbon. Yes, carbon is what I know about. Carbon is what we do as a company. And carbon is a damn big thing, if you really think about it. And defossilizing that is really what we have to do to become a zero-emission society. But this isn't just specific to carbon. This isn't just specific to what we do as Octavia Carbon. There is a climate tech sector out there. Again, think of it, $3 trillion that will be spent somewhere. And we have to think about where that money will be spent. And I can tell you that East Africa has a lot going for it. We've talked about the energy part. Geothermal is key. Solar is also great, and especially solar that doesn't vary with seasons, as it does, say, in the global north, which is a huge headache if you want to resolve around that. Talent, I've mentioned. But the final few pieces here are policy. Kenya takes this seriously. We've had the climate minister in our office when we were a 6-month-old company doing this. His Excellency, President Ruto, has been pitched by their companies, and they have a contract with the Department of Energy in the US to make this happen here. this isn't just a fiction. This isn't just something that, it's like being floated by enthusiastic startup founders. The Kenyan government takes this extremely serious because they see that this is the way they create broad-based economic growth, by giving something to the world that it needs, by exporting key goods that are needed for a global transition of a size that we've not seen since the dawn of the fossil fuel age. And again, that policy is key. And I think there's really a deeper reason here, and you might treat it as a separate reason, or those two linked. There's moral clarity in Kenya about this. Today, there's 5 million Kenyans that are on food support because of climate change, or because of a drought that's been made vastly more likely by climate change. Again, Kenyans look up to our Nobel Prize laureate Wangari Maathai, Kenya's only, who was an environmentalist. We host UNEP. We take this question seriously. And we have engineers on our team who have parents whose tap ran dry a few months ago because of climate change, because of drought. Again, you don't have to look far to realize that climate change is ravaging this region. And young people aren't growing up as ignorant of that. They want to fix that. Africa does not want to be a climate victim. And we have the power to actually really change that. And we have to then channel that moral clarity, that ambition, that talent, that energy into something that we can actually do for the world. And it's just really important to say, there is excellent work being done here, making smallholder farmers more resilient. There's excellent work being done here, helping to finance, like small enterprises and so on. But we have to think bigger. Again, we cannot think at the level of a few consumers who live on $2 a day. That is not how Kenya is going to become a high-income country. It is not something we've ever seen another country do before in becoming a high-income country that way. We have to think globally. We have to compete globally. That is a key part of the mission that we have and what we have tried to lead in here in Octavia Carbon. And again, let's think about the opportunity. Again, we are like in VC for a reason. We are in the venture building business, all of us. And it's just key to think that this is an opportunity. Even if you think that the chances of us succeeding aren't that great, we are talking about $1 trillion. Think about that as the prize that we are playing for, and that we have excellent cards for. Again, global supply chains are splintering a bit more. Africa has probably a really good chance of capitalizing on that and really leveraging its strong economic fundamentals to drive a very different story about what we want the African economy to be. Thank you so much.